Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Peter the Booklover, and this is Book Talk. This is where I talk about the books that I recently read. This is episode number 25, and in this episode, I'm going to talk about The Lightning Thief by Riordan. Let's talk about this book. Hello again. I am Peter the Booklover, and I like to read a lot of books. I like to collect books, and I like to talk about books. I also like to talk about the movies that I watch. So I have a YouTube channel to where I talk about the books that I read and the movies that I watch. And I have a pretty good time doing it. Hopefully you'll have a good time if you're here. Now, before I get into this book, I want to ask you if you're a fan of the movie Clash of the Titans. Now, if you're a fan of the movie Clash of the Titans, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But if you are, I have a book that you might really enjoy. This is The Lightning Thief. This is book 1 in a 5-book series of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And what this book is a book mixed with Greek mythology, and it's set in America. And this is an adventure to where they travel across the country and have a lot of adventures. And I think it's a pretty good book. And I'm going to talk about it in a minute. But before I get into the book, I want to actually thank everybody that's here. I want my audience to know that I really appreciate you giving me your time. And I want to thank you for being here. So let's get into this. This is The Lightning Thief by Riordan. This is book 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And this book came out in 2005. And this book is a book mixed with Greek mythology. And it's set in America. Now, the way this book starts out is Percy Jackson is a 12-year-old student that goes to school. And he's actually goes on a field trip at the beginning of this book. And while he's on this field trip, he actually gets attacked by his teacher, and she becomes a fury. And as he's getting attacked by this fury, another teacher actually helps him by throwing a pen at him. Now, this is a magical pen. This pen, once you take the cap off, it actually becomes a sword to where you could fight non-mortals. You can't fight mortals with this sword, but you can fight people from the other worlds, monsters. You can't fight gods with this, but you can fight the monsters that are in this world that most mortals can't see. But if you're a demigod, you could see these creatures. So he gets this pen. It's called Riptide. Also Anaklusmos is another name for it. And he uses this sword to defend himself. And it actually works. He actually defeats this teacher that's actually a fury. And then after this, there's a bunch of people that see this, right? And a little bit after this event happens, he starts to talk about it, and nobody knows what he's talking about. People act like he's kind of crazy, and he's imagining stuff, but he's like, I just fought this thing, but nobody really believes him. And at the same time, he's got a friend, his friend Grover. Now, we find out a little bit later that Grover is a satyr, half goat, half human. And while he's a student at school, he hides himself as a human being. And even Grover is telling him he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And a little bit later, he actually goes home with Grover, and Grover is trying to defend him, but he ditches Grover. And then a little bit later, after ditching Grover, him and his ma go to this cabin by the ocean, and then Grover actually shows up there, and he lets them know that he's in danger, and they have to go to Half-Blood Hill. Now, Half-Blood Hill is a place where demigods kind of hide out to where they could be protected from the real world, because once you know that you're a demigod, the monsters could smell you, and then they start coming for you. So they go to Half-Blood Hill. And on the way to Half-Blood Hill, they get pursued by a minotaur. And there's a pretty wicked scene where the minotaur is going after them, but they eventually wind up getting into Camp Half-Blood. And while they're at Camp Half-Blood, a couple things happen. Percy Jackson meets a bunch of other kids. Now there are other demigods there as well, which is they have a human parent and a god as a parent. And one of the kids there is a daughter of a god, the daughter of Ares. Her name is Clarice. And him and Percy kind of have like a competition with each other. And then he goes through training at this place. And then a little bit later, he actually finds out who his father is. And I'm not going to tell you that because I don't want to give anything away, but he finds out who his father is. And then a little bit later, he actually goes and sees an oracle. And this oracle gives him a prophecy. And the prophecy is very interesting. I'm not going to give it away. I'd rather you to read the book and discover this thing, because a lot of things in this book are really cool, and I'd rather you read about it than to hear it from me. So he gets this prophecy, and it turns out that they have to go on an adventure. Now, they're in New York at the time, and then they have to go all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So him and another character, which is another demigod. This is another daughter of a god. This is the daughter of Athena, Annabeth. And Grover, Annabeth, and Percy Jackson go on this adventure. Now, there's a lot of adventures on this journey across America, and I really don't want to give them away because they're great. It's like a lot of really interesting adventures happen on the way. They fight gods. They run into a bunch of things. You know what I mean? They run into titans. They run into more furies. There's a chimera. There's a whole bunch of other really cool things that I really don't want to give the details of because I'll kind of ruin the story. Especially one of my favorite parts. You know, you really don't know what's going on until you find out what's going on. And if you're a fan of Clash of the Titans, you're going to be really familiar with this character. So they run into that, and they run into all these adventures, and they wind up getting to the other side of the America in the Pacific Ocean. And then they actually visit the underworld, which is really interesting. And you run into Cerberus, which is the three-headed dog. And that's a really cool scene. And there's other cool things in there. And they meet more gods. Actually, you meet Hades. And you also meet a couple other gods. I really don't want to give away too much. But you actually run into Hades in this. And then it eventually is to where they go back to Camp Half-Blood. And they solve this the problem that they have that I really don't want to get into, because I don't want to tell you what the prophecy is. So they go, and they wind up getting back to Camp Half-Blood, and the adventure's over. And then you get introduced to something else at the end of this book. And the thing about the end of this book is that you're going to have to read on, because it doesn't end in a way to where this book will stand alone. This is a book series, and it definitely connects with each part. But it's okay, because this is a great series. It's a lot of fun reading this. And, you know, sorry that I have to be vague about it, but if I'm not vague, I'll ruin a lot of this book, because this book can be spoiled. It's really easy to spoil a lot of stuff, and it's really cool discovering this stuff as you're reading this book. I had a really great time reading this book, and I think it's fantastic. I've finished 3 of these books already, and I'm on the 4th one, and it hasn't disappointed me yet. Every single one of these books is very entertaining, and I enjoy them a lot. And I highly recommend them, and I hope if you have a chance to get The Lightning Thief. And you know what's interesting about the other books is that I believe that if you picked up the second book, The Sea of Monsters, you'll actually could start with that and you won't be lost, because the thing about it is he does a really good job of like reintroducing you to the characters. So I believe that if you started on the second book, you won't be lost, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I'm having a great time with this series, and I'm enjoying it a lot. And I recommend that you should check these books out as well. And that's about it. I really can't give away any more and say anything more other than I recommend this book. Fantastic job on Riordan. He's a fantastic author. And that's about it. I know that I'm vague, but if you like this video, and it's okay that some people might want it to be to where I give more away, but I really don't want to, because I really want you to read this book and discover it for yourself. But yeah, if you liked what you've seen in this video, please do me a favor, hit the like button. It means a lot to me when you hit the like button. I really appreciate that when you do that. If you have any questions or comments, let me know what you think in the comment section. I really love to hear from the audience. It really means a lot to me to hear from you. And in fact, it's one of my favorite things about doing this. And if you've subscribed to this channel, I want to thank you for doing that. But if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do me a favor, subscribe to my channel. I make new videos all the time, and hopefully we could have a good time together if you subscribe. And that's about it. I'm Peter the Book Lover. I want to thank you for coming by, and I want to thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video.